G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Punit Dhillon from Skye Bioscience, based in beautiful San Diego, USA. Thanks for your time today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on your show, Troy. This is an absolute pleasure.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Olivio from Torpedo Journal reached out, thought you'd be a great guest to have on the cast.
Yeah, we just, I think thanks to Olivia for making the connection. We wrote a new book called Catapult, and you've interviewed different leaders and different business owners, so it was great to connect with you that way.
Before we get into the standard questions, maybe tell the audience a bit about the book, what it covers, and also where it's available. We'll link through to it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, thanks for giving me that opportunity. So Catapult, it's basically the culmination of the years of learning I've had in the life science space, and kind of merging that with the unique experience I've had in athletics. So it's marrying the two in terms of life sciences and entrepreneurship, as well as being an athlete, and jumping into kind of the frenetic area of entrepreneurship. And I've been able to package together 10 unique principles that I believe help in terms of growth, and help different individuals achieve a high level of performance. So it's really capturing that momentum, that mental focus, that strategy that's really required for our people to succeed, and then carry on with their own individual purpose into the business world and make an impact that they want to make. So if I was to give this book to myself, a younger version of myself, that was the audience that I had envisioned, and I'm very happy with the success that the book has had.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, well done. And on the athletics side, so what's your background there before we jump into the business questions?
Yes, so I started off as a runner in elementary school. My father was very avid in terms of running, then got into swimming and competitive swimming. So I did competitive swimming into college, and then went into competitive rowing, and then took a little bit of a break when focusing on my career, and as an adult or in my early 20s got into distance running and in more endurance sports, and today I've been doing triathlon for the last decade. So I've really enjoyed. I think I learned a lot from the endurance lifestyle, I guess, that has definitely merged into the way I approach work, because it seems like there's never a finish line.
Yeah, that's true. And I've got a lot of respect for anyone that's done even one triathlon. One of my brothers has, and I'm in awe. So yeah, I don't think you'll find me at the start line though, let alone the finish line.
Yeah, I really enjoyed endurance training, and now I guess I've been a constant kind of waterman, and I like the different paddle sports. So kind of been progressing from triathlon into other things like paddleboarding, and so I'm committing myself to doing an endurance paddleboard event next year. So I'm training for that as well right now.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I'm a bit of a swimmer as well. I swim 2 to 4Ks a week, and a friend sent me an article the other week about how swimming in particular for exercise actually has more benefits cognitively. I don't know if you've come across any research around that, but I was really surprised. It certainly got me back in the pool for a few extra laps.
Oh yeah, it's funny because it gives you, I think, a lot of mental clarity. You're spending so much time solo with yourself that you get to process all that muddled up thought process that you have usually going on, because we're going at such a frenetic pace. But so swimming has definitely been that for me. And I know it's such a big sport in Australia. So there's some of the world's best swimmers that come out of Australia.
Just look at the recent Olympics in Tokyo. Yeah. We'll link through that article. Actually, it's called, it's on The Conversation, but it's swimming gives your brain a boost, but scientists don't know yet why it's better than other aerobic activities. So yeah, it's a lot of good information.
In my cap, I'm going to use that to share with my management team.
Yeah, great. Try and get them in the pool.
Get them in the pool, exactly.
I'll send that through to you after our chat. All right, let's get into the standard questions. So tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so my business is focused on in the life science space. So the company is called Skye Bioscience, and we're a unique company developing novel, first-in-class molecules that are focused on a whole range of different therapeutic areas, but our lead program is in the ophthalmology space. So we're developing a drug for glaucoma. And it's a very interesting, unique area because the underlying science around these molecules are what are known as cannabinoids, but these are synthetically derived molecules. And it's important to note, as I said, they're first in class. So what's interesting in the life science space is that everything is around intellectual property. Drug development is a long, arduous process. You want to show differentiation. So those kind of components, I think, are very interesting as it applies to Skye, because we kind of check the box on multiple areas, and we hope that this class of molecules has a lot of staying power. I was previously in the immuno-oncology space and got a chance to witness a huge amount of growth over a decade. What's attracted me to this company is that these types of pharmaceuticals that are in development are not just one disease specific. They're working across a whole range of diseases. So I think that that's a very attractive place to be for being, a partner, a licensee target, or an acquisition target for big pharma.
Right, great. And how did you start out?
So I recently became the CEO of this company. I was kind of brought into the company as new management, and I've been in the biotech space and life science space for the last 20 years. I started off working for a company called Inovio Pharmaceuticals. Actually, prior to that, I worked for a healthcare fund, then moved into industry side, worked for a company called Inovio Pharmaceuticals, and then after about 9 or 10 years, I had an opportunity to spin out a technology out of that company and started my own company called OncoSec Medical. And we developed a drug for melanoma, which we actually ran a clinical program, and they're still ongoing in Australia.
Yep.
Now, after working on that company for, again, almost a decade, I'm part of a new startup. So this company is kind of being built from the ground up, and we're actually looking forward to starting clinical trials in Australia as well. So it's up hopefully in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, great. And that company you started up, do you still own part of that, or have you sold that on?
Yeah, so that was a public company. We had I had an exit opportunity once we did a partnership with Merck. So I stayed with that company through 2020 as a board member, and I moved. I transitioned, brought on a different CEO in late 2017 as a kind of succession plan, and then continued on with the company as a board member, and then kind of handed off that to focus on this new company in August of last year.
Great. And what year did you found that company, and how old were you?
I started OncoSec in 2011, March of 2011. I was 30 officially, turning 31 that year. I initially did the draft of the business plan when I was 28, 29, and it was a very interesting experience, to say the least.
Yeah. Was there any catalyst that made you jump to your own business?
Yeah, so that was an interesting one, because I had led a very unique merger between two companies, one based out of Philadelphia. So you were there in Philadelphia, and this company that was based out of San Diego, and I had a wonderful experience doing that. So that transaction started in 2005 or 2007, I believe. I don't remember the exact dates, but anyways, mergers, as you know, they take some time. Took 6 months to a year to kind of get that completed, and then there was like 3 years of all of this synergy stuff that you do to make sure that the efficiencies actually work in a business, and it was a great experience. That company went from I believe like a $30 million market cap last year, it's focused on a COVID. It was focusing on a COVID vaccine as well, but they went into the multi-billion-dollar
Wow.
market cap. So a tremendous amount of growth. I saw that grow to almost like a 400 or 500 million-dollar market cap when I was there. So absolutely a great experience. And being the leader on the corporate finance side that led this M&A, saw the potential. So of course, what do you do in that situation? You speak with management, and the new CEO and I had a wonderful relationship, and he encouraged me to move to Philadelphia. That's where all the decisions were being made. So I took my wife to Bluebell, and she's like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Right. That's the catalyst, right?
that was the catalyst. So I really had to ask myself, well, am I getting overly comfortable, or am I up for a new challenge? And yeah, we did have some assets that I think, and I still believe that there was a lot of opportunity because Inovio was ultra focused on what the merger was meant to do for our stakeholders, while some of the technologies were shelved and put on hold. And we were able to take one of the technologies and really retool it for applications in cancer immunotherapy. And I'm very proud of leading that charge, working with a scientific founder around that to really drive some mega value creation. We took, it was negative $3 million because I had to buy a license and buy the asset from Inovio, and that was just like a car payment. It was a payment plan.
Yep.
It was a very friendly deal.
Yes.
And we had milestones associated with that, and we essentially started this from nothing and then made it into a company worth a couple $100 million market cap. Did a partnership with Merck. So I'm really proud of, essentially here's a technology that was sitting on a shelf and then converting it into this value event for everyone involved.
Yeah, great. And on that first company, so how many full-time equivalents did you start with, and kind of when you left, what did that grow to after the merger?
We started with 3 employees, or I believe 3 or 4 employees, and then at our peak we were at 70 employees. I don't know how many employees that OncoSec has at the moment, but when I was there, we went from working out of one room around one small
tiny desk,
4-person table, to a purpose-built 35,000 square foot facility that won an award for how it was designed. And it was like, it's great. It was tremendous. We went from being an early listed company to a NASDAQ listed company, and along the way raised over $250 million to develop the technology. So really been happy with the progress with what we've achieved there.
Yeah, great. And thank you for your service to society, what you do in this very important corner of business, but obviously serves a real purpose for everyone's health and well-being.
I think that's the interesting thing with life sciences, is that there's this tremendous growth and opportunity. There's like never a shortage of drugs or opportunities for helping unmet medical needs. There are still thousands, if not millions of probably unmet medical opportunities, or opportunities for drugs to do better, or differentiation that can be helping patients. And then there's all these other subcomponents of that, right? There's efficiencies that in terms of drug development, there's the whole argument around drug pricing, all of these things that are critical for long-term success of the overall healthcare industry. So I think I'm very I think blessed with the opportunity of been given some great experience and having a chance to work. I came from the corporate finance side, so and then working in a very regulated area, regulated industry, kind of helps you establish some structure at a young age, and understood operations and governance and finance, and then continue applying that from an entrepreneurial perspective has been a real cool experience.
Yeah. And back on Skye Bioscience, do you know how many full-time equivalents they started with and what they're up to now, kind of growth?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to say in like the last year. So I took over this company in August of 2020, and it's been almost 1 year and 15 days. Not that
Yep.
I'm counting. We started with 2 employees, and now we're at 10 employees and 14 contractors. So we've had great growth there. We've added to our board of directors, and so we have a much more experienced independent board. Our market cap has gone from less than 10 million to over 60 million
Yep.
market cap. We have a very defined clinical development plan. All across the board, we rebranded the company. I'm really pleased in terms of the taking into account all the different dynamics that happened in the last year, because we've had to deal with the pandemic on top of that, to have this kind of alignment team, all focused on growth, and to see that translate. I couldn't be more ecstatic. When I look at the report card, yeah, I think we've hit 95% of what we expected to do. So executing against the plan in what was a very not unusual is not the right word, but a very extraordinary year has been something.
Yeah. And so from 2 to 24 FTE now, what year did Skye start up?
So Skye started, the company's been around since, I believe, 2015 is when it was first initially developed, but it's been in a very early research stage prior to me coming on. So what my main objective and what the board had put kind of the onus on myself and my management team is that, can we get this company to the clinic as fast as possible? And we're this close to being able to do that now. So unlike when I began, we were over a year away from getting into the clinic with our first clinical program, and now we're around the corner. We expect that our clinical program will be launching within the next 5 months, I believe, or less.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Yeah, I don't know if I've felt that yet.
I should fill this answer in for most or half the guests anyway, because that's what they say. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had an opportunity to speak with my team during this, pseudo 1 year anniversary, if you call it. It's in the middle of the year, but it was important to recognize all the people that have joined the company, and then give an opportunity to do a look back as well as a look forward. And I think my main driving point was everything that we accomplished last year should have been there when we started. So that's just the foundation. Yep. Now is when the rubber hits the road. I think I believe that there will be a very important inflection, and you can call that a success, once this molecule enters into human studies, because we've then gone through some important rigor here in terms of manufacturing and drug development and the preclinical enabling studies that allow you to get to that step. So that I believe is a critical inflection, and then from there, this next molecule, and then subsequently building value. That's going to be the success. At the end of the day, I came into this company to do one thing, is to create value for our shareholders and help patients with a potential novel drug development pathway with these molecules. So I think if we can get there on both of those fronts, that's going to be really the ultimate measure of success.
No, does that answer the next question? What does success look like to you?
Okay. It starts with a B. No, so there's the two components of it. I don't think it's about the money. I think it's about recognition of these types of drugs. Inevitably, we know that the pathway for drug development is a very long and arduous one that takes a lot of investment dollars, a lot of patience, and
a lot of risk too.
Yeah, a lot of risk, and most people don't see it on the outward facing side. They just think that, oh, there's just this slow process externally. Inside, you're moving super whatever, 100 miles an hour in terms of the development process. And that's the way to kind of capture the success as a measurement here is that when you're moving ahead 100 miles an hour internally, ensuring that there's growth for the company as well as growth for the individuals that are part of that success, and then you get to the outcome that you're expecting as a team. That is what I think is the ultimate measurement of success. Of course, there are industry standards for that. When outward looking in, it's acquisitions, shareholder value, drug approval, all of those things are part of those measurements for success. But I think we all know that. I think the part that most people don't take a moment to recognize is that there's a lot of components in there that are the subcomponents that are probably more the intangible that really define the success.
Number one thing you'd recommend marketing a fast-growing business?
Marketing a fast-growing business. Okay, yeah. So we're not focused on marketing. That's the thing. Is as a drug development company, we're at a stage where we're in a very heavily regulated industry. So our marketing is really tampered at the moment in terms of at this stage of the company. However, we do have functions like corporate communications and investor relations that come with shareholder kind of management activities. The key thing is that having alignment between stakeholders and the plan, and making sure that there's that's how you kind of enable success, I guess, for us as a life science company, since we don't have traditional marketing at this point.
What about funding the business? Yeah,
so there's different stages of funding and types of investors in any business. I believe the important thing for us is that we get ongoing healthcare institutional recognition, and there's just a different kind of tiering of that as you get larger and larger. There's a certain class of investors that invest in this stage of companies and this type of growth and risk profile, and then there's you keep going up the ladder till you reach Fidelity or some of the larger healthcare funds that have been around for some time. That everyone has a risk profile, but everyone also has a portfolio size as well. So you either are 0.00001 of somebody's investment strategy, or you're 10% of somebody's investment strategy. And I think that's the key thing. So currently, we've been very fortunate to have a very strong investor base. We're probably over 50% institutional investors, and we're going to continue growing that profile.
In both businesses, were they bootstrapped initially, or there was investment from day one?
Yeah, initially they've been, I think all businesses have a bootstrap component, because you need to get investors comfortable until you get the larger check. So yes, the prior company probably had to shut the doors almost twice, because that's just the how you live in terms of survival mode. When I started at this company, we were negative 6 months of cash. We had $2.5 million in payables, and today we sit in the best cash position this company's ever had. So it's all a part of I think growth in terms of going through those trials and tribulations.
Yeah. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
If I started today with plenty of funding, absolutely. We have a lot to do in the life sciences space. I think that there's many different opportunities, and it's going to take a lot of funding in order to realize these different technologies that have a potential for disruption. That's I think the opportunity here is that we're living in a disruptive or a tremendous kind of era, that there's technology industry that's moving at a disruptive pace, life sciences industry that's moving at a disruptive pace, confluence of those two things, as well as other industries that are really helping to drive that disruption that everyone is expecting. When I was a young boy, I thought by year 2000 there's going to be flying cars. We all thought that, I'm sure, right?
Jetsons.
Yeah, and still there's no flying cars, but we're living in 2021. But I watched that movie with Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah, not iRobot. That's Will Smith. I'm gonna have to IMDb it.
I can't believe I forgot the name. I was on the tip of my tongue.
I know the one you mean. Oh, is it Minority Report?
Yeah, Minority Report. So
Yeah.
Minority Report, I think, if I recall, it was filmed in 2004, and it takes place in 2054 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but so if you look at that, remember when we all watched that movie back when it first came out, we're like, oh, that's crazy, like, touch screens and all of the stuff that he's doing. But in 2021, we're already we've surpassed some of the predictions of that movie.
Well,
so
even the police officers in the flying packs, there's army now that can board ships with a flying pack. I've seen videos of that recently. It's phenomenal. And Uber were going to test their flying Ubers commercially in Melbourne, I think it was last year before COVID hit. And the year before, that actually had air Uber service from the Melbourne Cup into the CBD. So we're not that far away from, obviously, electric flying cars.
I think, and that's the thing. So I think to answer your question, there's still plenty to do. And in the next 10 years, it's a very, very interesting time. I always keep telling my kids this. I was like, you guys are living in this golden era. Like, this is going to be crazy in terms of what we're going to experience in the next 10 years. And I'm so excited about being able to witness that. Right now, if you think of it, it's already kind of happening somewhere. But I was thinking the other day, I was thinking about a folding robot, a robot that can fold clothes. And of course, there's a machine that was released in 2018 that never been commercialized, but that would really help us in the household.
Have you seen the robot kitchen?
No.
Oh my God. It's only like 15 grand. It's out there commercially now. And I showed it to my daughter last year and I said, like, when we build our dream home, we're getting one of these. So you can have chefs like Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver, or your parents can put their recipes in, your own recipes, etc., and set a timer or do the app on your way home. And I think you may have to just have the ingredients out on the bench. I don't think you can get to the fridge because the arm is part of the range hood, above the stove. It's just this white arm. I'll send you the video. It's phenomenal. I'll include it in the show notes as well so people can see. And it'll prepare a meal for you. And I think it even does the dishes.
What?
Just this
arm. I gotta see that.
Yeah. And it's like 15 grand US. That was probably a couple of years ago I saw this. Wow. But just back on the technology, I do take time out to talk to my 8-year-old about just being grateful. And recently, we'll talk about Melbourne's got pretty shitty lockdowns. They're into their 6th now, and I think they're the second most locked down city in the world, over 207 days now. So we're talking about that, and I think it was shitty weather here in Hobart, and she made some comment, a bit of a negative comment. I said, well, we should be grateful, sweetheart, because when I was a boy, I used to have to get on my BMX. You should be grateful we've got the internet, Netflix, I used to have to get on my BMX, ride to the video store for, 15 minutes away, spend an hour sorting through which bloody movie I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
Rent it, go home. Sometimes the tape wouldn't work or whatever. You've got movies at the touch of a button, and we've got Shazam. We can be in a car, hear a great song on the radio, and she can hit the button, find the song, add it to a playlist. I said, you should be grateful for the age that you live in, and also all the health benefits as well. So, yeah, it's phenomenal.
It's absolutely, you're absolutely right. I think that's it's going to be very interesting. That's why I keep telling the kid, I want to live till past 100 if I can, and I want to keep focusing on health in order to. And that's why I continue. That's what keeps me going on this endurance sports as well. I'm like, it's good for the health. But you know what, my 9-year-old, so yours is 8-year-old, my 9-year-old told me the other night when I was putting her to bed, it's like, Dad, did you know that you went to school in the last century? I was like, that's a very smart ass remark.
Yeah. I've read recently that scientists say that the first person to live to 150 is already alive at the moment. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. 150.
Well, I think into the 120s. No one's hit 130 yet, I think. But
yeah, I believe somebody's 121 or 122 now.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think I'll make it, but can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah. I think the most stressful journey is always when your growth is constricted because of resources, right? It could be, of course, funding is an obvious one, but sometimes it's also people and
Yep.
personnel because it's like you need the experience and expertise. I think anyone listening to this will recognize it's not the CEO here, right? It's not the leader that is. So the leader's job is to help really remove those obstacles and enable that growth to not be restricted. And that's what I think is the most stressful moment, because on one hand you have a plan you want to execute, but then you have these moments that are circumstantial. It's sometimes it's due to funding and resources, and sometimes it's brain power in order to get to the kind of end result you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I've had a fair share of those in terms of change. You know, I already mentioned in terms of funding constrictions, but the others has been around making sure that the team is in place and that they get ahead of what we need to get done.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
It would have to be the emotional intelligence side. I
Yep.
think the people investment, you cannot do enough of it. It's the most critical in order for companies to really focus on beating the odds, right? There's so much out there in terms of, okay, we can be visionary and say, yeah, we're going to live till 150 and stuff like that, but if you're not having that mindset, you're not having that support, you're not focusing on driving purpose, you're not focused on aligning people's responsibilities and roles with their purpose, then you're not really doing a great job. I think that it boils down to really helping your team enable that growth, and sometimes that means having the EQ necessary to reframe what winning really means
Yep.
and helping them to beat the odds, because beating the odds comes in so many different shapes and sizes, and as a leader that's probably the most effective place where you can invest your time.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I think that it's alignment with external stakeholders sometimes, because internally it's like a go. You're looking at the big picture, you're really focusing on driving that, you have an operational plan that you're executing against, and then you get uh, a distraction or other things that end up really derailing that. So the consensus, I believe in a component of consensus driven growth, but what I've learned in my experience in the last 20 years is there has to be alignment with external stakeholders, and that's your board,
Mm-hmm.
your shareholders, your team internally, sometimes even extending beyond the team's families, so that everyone recognizes that you're looking at not only the big picture, but those interactions are really helping to prioritize and shape what everyone's expectations are, because that's what really builds that trust. It builds the resilience, and it gets you ahead of the crises, for different crises that come up. And
Yep.
no one predicted the pandemic, but we, I think, have seen an amazing amount of people step up during the
Yes.
pandemic. Leaders step up, team members step up, everyone in different capacities really step up, and at the same time, the external stakeholders have applauded that, and there's been even more growth. So look at the areas that we've seen the amount of growth, the most amount of growth. If you look at some of these technology companies and how well they've succeeded, is that they've really doubled down where they felt that they needed to, and they had 100% buy-in, wherever they needed to in order to show that success. And then of course the consumers, they're the ones that are teaching the consumers what they need.
Yep.
So I think that's been a really cool thing, and we maybe wouldn't be witnessing what we're witnessing right now without that jolt that was necessary in order for this next decade or whatever, 20 years, we're going to see this cool era that we're living in.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I like the agileness of a small business. I think that having been involved in some bigger companies, I haven't worked with a part of a big pharma, but I've worked alongside as a partner with different big pharma or other bigger companies. And I have to say that being a part of a small team you can be very agile and adjust and continue to focus on rapid value growth. Or components that you sometimes get in the way of larger corporations.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Like I said, from a mindset perspective, I think we're living in a profound era. I think that this is an opportunity to think bigger than ever. We have an opportunity to aspire like 10 times higher than where we are and just do the best we can to outline a plan so you can execute. And related to that has been the mindset of showing up.
Yep.
Of just choosing to show up in a way that helps to drive that growth. I think there's so many different parts of being that responsibility as a CEO. You have corporate strategy, you have organizational, operational plans, you have teams, you have processes, you have personal working stuff that comes up, you have board. Yeah, again, we already talked about stakeholders. So there's all of these different things. In order to do it, you have to, in order to be effective at decision making, I think you need, and in order for you to, whatever, quote unquote, make it happen, you got to show up with the right attitude to make it happen. And that's just sometimes taking advantage of slowing down, thinking about what you got to do, and at the same time, you don't have to have all the answers. So harnessing the power of your team and the relationships and the broader peer networks in the industry can really help tackle some of those challenges. And then I think that's what we learned in the last year with the pace that we had to adjust with the pandemic, and we got to work together in order to get through those challenges.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think it's planning. So it comes down to really planning and establishing a set of tools that helps you hold accountability to yourself and allow you to hold accountability with your team. And I think lots of tools come in different shapes and sizes. The idea is to have a ubiquitous set of tools that people can understand, your team can understand, and that allows planning and execution to occur. Like we talked about in healthcare, it's highly disruptible. There's lots of opportunities, but we need to really focus on that plan that leads to value creation. And of course, we rely on stuff that's probably been around for decades in terms of industry tools, but they work. The to-do lists, the Gantt charts, the operational plan, the corporate budget, the strategy planning, the corporate milestones, all of those things that we all use in different industries, they work, they've been around, and you can continue to adapt them to suit your purpose.
Be the change you want to see in your business. Become more productive and less stressed with our free Transform Your Performance online course. Once you see the benefits, put your entire team through the course at no cost. We start out by telling you the secret to guaranteed success, then over 100 lessons help you be more focused, present, productive, and feel more in control about work. growasmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, so we've added with all those different approaches. A lot of it has been the team that we've worked with. I've had the pleasure of working with over the last 20 years. So my core team, we've worked in different capacities together across different companies, and that's been tremendous because you do have that history, the trust, the experience that comes along with that. But then we've had to enhance the team through recruitment and other ways. We've been, I think, very successful. There's the job market right now is hot.
Yes.
There's a lot of people looking for work, and there's a lot of great talent out there. And a lot of people are, tired, frustrated, trying to find themselves, find their purpose in terms of what they want to do. and that enables some some great relationships to be built, and hopefully alignment for what a company needs to succeed.
What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
The biggest thing is making sure that you listen to what your team needs, and through that, understand where their purpose is. There's so many different ways to achieve that. Sometimes it is working with outside experts like coaches that enable you to foster the EQ side of the equation. And I've found that alongside of an individual's purpose, alongside of their roles and responsibilities, is the best way in order to really foster the growth that you want to see in an individual.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
As my wife will say, that I continue to do what I want to do. So it's sometimes, it's not the best. I don't have balance. I have continued to focus on work and self and life in each of those different buckets. There's the different people that allow that. So really continue to surround myself with people that I want to work with. I have a wonderful, loving family that's been super supportive of all my aspirations. And then at the same time, I do make time for myself, and being an endurance athlete, I get a lot of solo time.
Yep.
So yeah, it's never a balance, but I think it's about having fun in each of the different buckets.
Yeah. How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
I can't quantify it. Basically, that's who I am.
Yep.
I continue to read, listen to music. I love not only listening to podcasts, but reading insightful books. I also like to get creative. We were introduced to you through Torpedo Journal, and Olivia and I started an endeavor in terms of a passion project of just capturing journalism tied to athletics, and that's what we've been doing with Torpedo Journal. And there's a lot of current events and other issues and social issues that need to brought attention to. So I think that all of that stuff, the learning that goes into that, the professional development, different seminars, working with coaches, it's what has intrigued me to be constantly learning and continuing to better myself in terms of growth as an individual, and then also work with others in terms of my team to enable their growth as well. So it's almost like the more you put into more effort you put into some of the other things that you're not as good at or not in your wheelhouse, it helps give you that benefit to apply that skill on the day-to-day.
That's the next question, you've just touched on it. So you've had mentors or coaches along the way. Maybe speak to some of the value you've got from that.
Yeah, I think that from an athletic standpoint, I grew up with different coaches, so that has always been very inspirational, and I understood the benefit of a coach-athlete relationship early on because of training in these different sports. In the business world, I didn't connect the two as quickly. So it took me a while to recognize the same thing applies to the business world, that coaches and mentors really help to drive excellence out of an individual. And I've had the benefit of working with some great coaches and mentors. I've been working with Judy Brooks for almost, definitely over 7 years. I think it's been established entrepreneur and executive coach that's been extremely beneficial for my personal growth.
And what was Judy helping you with or focusing on? Was there any areas in particular, or I assume it's changed over the 7 years?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved and changed. I think the first part of it was really around understanding what drives me and what's my purpose. And it almost was excruciatingly painful to get to the root of that, because it was like, okay, take out work, take out your other stuff that you love, and what's the root of what makes you tick. And that was really eye-opening in terms of that experience, and it only enabled a better understanding of all of these components in one's universe that enable somebody to really think about the broader opportunity. There was a book I read by David Brooks. It's called The Second Mountain, and he basically outlines that most people spend the time on the first mountain. If you look at two peaks, they get through their career, their they school, they're focused on their career, they're establishing themselves in terms of settling down. Sometimes that involves with family, kids, whatever those steps are. And then they look and they're like, okay, well, what do I do next? And I think that's where the second mountain is that it moves from being self-centered to other-centered, outside of yourself. And that's where there's a much more stronger embrace of like interdependence, not that takes and you're helping others grow alongside of you. So that's what has really been the cool experience about not only working with a coach, but also working in the industry that I have had the pleasure of working with in the last 20 years. And life sciences, I think, ingrains that into you. Is like you're working for the betterment of society.
Now, you're obviously a listed company, so you'll have a board. Your startup, did that also have a board, and kind of what frequency did you meet, and do you meet currently?
Yeah, so we meet at least a quarterly, and then any other special meetings that are required. But from a governance standpoint, we've got really strong governance around meeting quarterly.
Yep. And you're one of the few that we've had on that's exited operationally a business, the one you started up. So any advice for the audience, or you knocked that out of the park?
No, I didn't knock it out of the park. I think there's always, it's always a tough one, because you have to ask yourself whether you're adding value. And that's the time where I selected to transition. I was able to recruit a new CEO, developed a relationship with him. He joined the board, and then there was a very long and patient process in terms of handing that and managing that transition. I stayed on. In fact, we appointed the new CEO as CEO. I stayed on as president, and then I stayed on as a board. So I think each company is unique. You need to really evaluate on a case-by-case basis. Thankfully, I had an opportunity to do it but at the same time, recognize that I'm more of an earlier stage development guy. I'm not a commercial drug developer. I've never commercialized a drug. That's my experience lies in this specific place where it's about creating value to a partnership event. So that's where I'm focused on, and I think that's where I want to focus on for this current company. Maybe down the road, there's a different opportunity that comes. But I think that any succession plan, if it can be done smoothly, take as much time as necessary and do it patiently, and work with the different people that are in your that are your support, your coaches, your board, to help enable that successful transition.
Good advice. All right, Punit, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I think that the hardest thing is learning to step aside when you need to step aside, and let your team, your experts, your key people that you rely on do their thing. Oftentimes we get so blinded by, there's a certain expectation of the leader or the CEO to drive important decisions, when most of the time it's about enabling the experts to do their thing, and support them from behind. So I think that's the hardest thing. For me personally, it's also I guess putting a bit of brevity in terms of what I need to say. So there's a bit of like adding a diet to my word count in terms of when I want to speak to people, because that brevity and really helps to drive clarity in terms of decision making. So so those are probably the two hardest things that I've experienced in my career so far.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Recently, I would say I already mentioned David Brooks's book, The Second Mountain, because it allowed me to take a step back and say, okay, well, there's a bigger picture here. You know, I was a go person, and I'm still a go person. I think I'm just wired like that. Ever since I moved to the US and had an opportunity to work here, I've been trying to establish a career, establish a presence for these different companies that I've been a part of, and take that responsibility very seriously. And then along the way you sacrifice other things that you feel like you could have also taken advantage of. I think that recognizing that there's a different selfishness, it's like we said, like not independence but more interdependence, that there's working with a team in order to do that. So David Brooks' book was very interesting and insightful from that perspective. And then in terms of my type A personality, James Clear's book, The Atomic Habits, has definitely stood out. Like that whole 1% increments and automatizing everything, and those incremental habits really, that's how I deal with like things every day.
Yes, same. I think I'm halfway through that book. I put it down a few months ago to pick up another theme, but yeah, it's a great book. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I still I'm a subscriber to HBR, so I listen to their different audio.
Right, Harvard Business Review. Yeah, really.
Yeah, and then I've been a subscriber to New York Times and The Economist ever since university. So those are my day-to-day three kind of like sources that I rely on. I also I like to listen to Monocle 24 and Globalist because just keeping up to date on kind of current events. But there's just also just so much coming our way. So it's like, like I have to do a very curated approach. I have a great team. So there's, a few different individuals that send me, here's the things that we need to like, there's a people that focus on, this is the tasks you have to get done. And then there's like the people like corporate communications that are like, these are the things that, you need to focus on or get up to speed with, because this is going to be in the news cycle in the next 48 hours. So I also take my cues from the working with a great team.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
To do. Microsoft To Do.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Okay. I would say that don't strive for perfection, that there's an opportunity to really be authentic with a team, and, ultimately the customers or whatever yourself, but most importantly to yourself. And with that ownership that you have to yourself, you're really able to learn to fight through some of the challenges that are going to come your way. Inevitably, they're going to come your way, no matter how. I always pinch myself every single time things are going too great or whatever, like, you're feeling like, oh, there's a perfect stride. Even when I'm running, if I feel like I'm in a perfect stride, of course, I'll take advantage of that. I'll take that momentum, but at the same time, back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I know that my kick up on my leg is going to aggravate my hamstring, so I'm not going to push it. And there's the same thing in business. I think you take full advantage of when things are working, but at the same time be on high alert to really remember that you got to remain grounded in terms of inevitably challenges come your way.
Great. Well, thanks for your time today, Punit. I think the audience will get a lot of value out of your journey and what you've shared with us today. Congratulations on your success to date and current business, 2 to 24 FTE, and doing great things for the world.
Hey, thank you so much, Troy. I really appreciate it.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.